So, get this. After almost 20 years of back and forth, two of the planet's biggest economic powerhouses finally shook hands on a deal. I'm talking about India and the European Union. On January 27, 2026, they signed a massive free trade agreement, and we're about to dive into why people are calling this one of the most important deals of our generation. And hey, don't just take my word for it. The leaders themselves, from the EU's Ursula von der Leyen to India's Prime Minister Modi, they didn't hold back. They both called it the mother of all deals. And that name, well, it really nails the sheer size of this thing. Okay, so just how big are we talking? Let's start with the people. This deal covers almost 2 billion people. Seriously, just think about that for a second. That's a quarter of everyone on Earth, all brought into one giant free trade zone. It's a connection on a scale we've just never seen before. And all those people, they bring some serious economic muscle. Put them together, and you're looking at a market with a combined GDP of over $24 trillion. So yeah, this isn't your average run-of-the-mill trade pact. This is the birth of a genuine economic giant. All right, so mother of all deals. It's a big claim, right? Is it just hype? Well, let's get into it. Because when you look at the numbers, you start to see that this title, it's backed up by some pretty staggering facts. And this chart really puts it all into perspective. Look at this. Together, the India-EU bloc accounts for a quarter of the world's entire economy. But here's the kicker. Check out the trade numbers. They control a third of all global trade. That means this one partnership now has a huge influence on how basically everything moves around the planet. Now, something this massive doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. This has been a long time coming. We're talking an 18-year marathon. The talks actually started way back in 2007, but then they just stalled for nearly 10 years. It wasn't until 2022 that they got back on track. So what we're seeing now is the result of a really long, really complicated history. And that brings up the million-dollar question, right? After 18 years, why now? What was the catalyst? Well, the answer isn't just about the money. It's about something much bigger. It's about the entire geopolitical landscape shifting under our feet. So here's the key. Both India and the EU are chasing this idea called strategic autonomy. What does that mean? Well, think about the last few years. Supply chain chaos, global tensions. Both sides realized they needed to protect themselves, to de-risk their economies. They don't want to be caught in the middle and forced to choose a side between the US and China. And this comparison here really tells the whole story. You've got the EU partnership, which is all about stability and clear rules. And then you have the recent relationship with the US, which has been, well, a bit of a roller coaster. Think unpredictable tariffs, constant friction. So you can see why India and the EU are trying to build something more solid, like a stable anchor in a pretty stormy sea. Okay, so that's the why. Now for the fun part, the what. Let's pop the hood on this agreement and see what's actually inside. Who's getting what? First up, what the EU is offering India. And it is huge. They're basically wiping out tariffs on 99.5% of everything India sells them. And get this, it's not some far-off promise. Over 70% of those tariffs disappear on day one. That is a massive, immediate game changer for Indian businesses. And what about India's side of the bargain? Well, this is the most India has ever opened its market. Ever. They're cutting duties on more than 92% of goods from the EU, and almost half of that happens right away. For a market that's historically been pretty protected, this is, well, it's a really big deal. Truly unprecedented. Okay, hold on. Just because it's signed doesn't mean you'll see the effects tomorrow. There's some administrative stuff to get through first. It needs a legal scrubbing, which will take a few months. Then it has to be officially approved by the EU Parliament and the Indian Cabinet. So realistically, we're probably looking at late 2026, maybe early 2027, before it's all fully up and running. All right, so let's move beyond the policy speak. What does all this mean for real people and real businesses? Who's going to win big here? And are there any bumps in the road we should be watching out for? For India, the list of winners is pretty long. Take textiles and clothing. They've been battling tariffs as high as 12%. Now, boom, level playing field. That could mean millions of jobs. Then there are engineering goods getting duty-free access to a $2 trillion market. And it's not just about tariffs. For sectors like pharmaceuticals and IT, we're talking faster approvals and making it way easier for Indian professionals to go and work in the EU. And the EU? Oh, they're getting some huge wins too. They're getting a golden ticket into one of the fastest growing markets on the planet. I mean, just look at this. Tariffs on European cars. They're dropping from a whopping 110% all the way down to 10%. Wine and spirits, tariffs that were a crazy 150% are getting slashed. European machinery will get way cheaper, which is actually a win for Indian industry too, helping it modernize. But, it can't all be sunshine and roses. There's a big potential hurdle, and it's called CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. It's a new EU policy, and the simplest way to think about it is as a kind of carbon tax on imported goods. And here's where things get tricky. This new carbon tax could cause a major problem for some of India's biggest exports, like steel and aluminum. The cost of this tax may actually be so high that it completely wipes out all the gains from the tariff cuts. So it's a bit like tearing down one wall just to build another one right behind it. It's definitely the biggest potential spoiler in the whole deal. So let's zoom out for a second. What's the big picture here? Because this deal is about so much more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. This is a massive geopolitical move that could literally reshape the global economic map. And this is maybe the most important part. This deal basically makes the China plus one strategy a reality. You know how for years everyone's been talking about how companies need to diversify and not rely so much on China? Well, this deal finally gives them a real, tangible, and economically smart alternative. It's a real incentive to finally make that move. And you have to understand, this goes way beyond just business. This is a full-on strategic alliance. It's about both India and the EU carving out their own space, their own independence, in a world dominated by giants. They've even thrown in a defense partnership to work closer on security. The big idea here is to create a more stable, multipolar world, not just one run by two superpowers. It's about creating an anchor of stability in very unpredictable times. So, in the end, this whole historic deal leaves us with a really big question. We live in an age where it feels like everyone is being forced to pick a side. This India-EU agreement, it's an attempt at a third way. It's a massive bet that maybe, just maybe, a partnership of equals can actually build a different, more stable future. What do you think?